Hello, romance readers. Welcome to Illicit Liaisons with Tender and Tempting Tales, where each week we discuss the good, the bad, and the naughty of romance fiction. I am Jenna Harte, a romance author of the Southern Heat contemporary romance series and the Sexy Valentine mystery series, as well as the managing editor of Tender and Tempting Tales, a steamy romance anthology for when you want to have a romantic quickie.
Hi, I'm Tara Leederman, social media manager here at Tender and Tempting Tales, and lore maven for Starship Valkyrie, a science fiction game and story universe. I write science fiction stories, including romance, and you can often find me in our anthologies alongside these ladies.
And today we have with us Annie R McEwen, a historical and paranormal romance author who is a regular in our anthologies. Yay. She's in Moonlight Margaritas, Midnight Mischief, and Mistletoe, and in our upcoming Fireworks and Flirtation. She's a career historian who has lived in 6 countries under every roof, from a canvas tent to a Georgian era manor house, and she's won several awards for excellence in romance authorship. Her short fiction appears in numerous anthologies. She has novels published with several presses, and we always love it when she contributes to our anthologies. Matter of fact, I think last time we begged her. Uh,
It's true. It's really true.
when not in her 1920s bungalow in Florida, Annie writes blogs and explores castles in Wales. You can find links to Annie's website and books, as well as all the other books and resources we mentioned in the show in our show notes. Annie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here, of course.
Now, normally, Tara and I like to start the show with bookish news or hot takes and things like that. And the big topic recently has been the newest adaptation of Wuthering Heights. And you two, with all your literature smarticles, are here to help me through this because this adaptation does have a lot of people buzzing sort of negatively around
Mm.
it. But for me, the big thing that always comes out about this and several other classic romances, if you were to search Google for great classic romance, this is always on it. Because in my mind, particularly Wuthering Heights is not the greatest romance ever told, even though that's, I think, on the thing for Wuthering Heights this time. And I'm just wondering, like, what am I missing? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on Wuthering Heights with this toxic Heathcliff? We got Kathy, who doesn't even think about choosing him when money comes walking through the door. So, what do you think?
Wuthering Heights is not a romance novel. It
Thank
is,
you.
by any definition of a romance novel, in fact, by any definition of romance, period, it is not a romance. What it is a Gothic novel. And it falls absolutely squarely in the center of an English Gothic novel trend that started with the Castle of Otranto in 1764, and then runs right up through, I'm going to say, Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I think that's probably the point at which we can say it merged into a growing trend, which was either science fiction or horror, or possibly horror with science fiction elements, or science fiction with horror elements. But by then, the Gothic genre had changed into, I think, horror. That was not true in the early decades of Gothic fiction in England. And so I come down absolutely squarely on the notion that this is a Gothic novel. The fact that love of some sort, toxic or healthy, possessive or liberating, comes and goes, and it is that makes no never mind. It is what it is. And just putting a love story of any sort in a novel does not make it romance. Okay, so as you can see, I am pretty adamant on that, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm so happy. Tara, what
Yeah,
are
I
your
agree with Annie on that. I mean, I think that because of Anne Radcliffe, who was really, really popular at the end of the 19th century, there is this idea of the Gothic romance. She even had a book called The Romance of the Forest, for instance. And she did write Gothic romances where we have a couple who get together in the midst of a Gothic situation. And they even had some bodice ripper qualities to them, like almost ravish kind of things in them. Sort of proto bodice ripper, proto romance at the time. We would recognize those qualities. And I do think that Wuthering Heights gets confused into that tradition a little bit because of the Gothic romance. And of course, they didn't have the same definition of what a romance was at the time. I mean, it comes from roman to some degree, which just means a novel. And there was a lot of female novel reading at the time, and people just sort of lumped a lot of this reading into one category. It's women's reading for a long time. And the other thing, there were a lot of romances at the end of the 19th century written by women, especially with a marriage plot. So those are much more recognizable as romance than a Wuthering Heights. I think a lot of people read Wuthering Heights when they're 14. And I think that it
yeah.
speaks to that adolescent part of us, like this like tortured, angsty love.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of 14-year-olds, Emerald, the director of Wuthering Heights included, have a kind of dreamlike understanding of the book because they don't read it again after their freshman year of high school. Like Romeo and Juliet, they just have this very adolescent understanding of it that they carry with them. And they want it to be a romance because it still speaks to that angsty part of them. That messy, teenaged, their love is in the rocks, and you really love that. And it's the same person who reads dark romance and toxic romance and feels kind of connected to it because of all the drama within. And I think that that is like a lovely part of the female experience in the United States, that like I understand, but it doesn't make it a romance.
I think you too, because you are so smart on these literary things. Would you be able to explain what you think Emily Bronte might think of how her novel has been taken and seen? I mean, when she wrote this, and I don't think she lived long enough to know whatever happened to it, right? But I mean, would she be like, you're missing the point? Or I'm just curious.
I'll this may be a cynical viewpoint, and I don't mean it unkindly at all. I mean it from the standpoint of someone who has exactly the same concerns as all three of the Bronte women had, which is that they wrote their books to make money.
Yeah.
And there are a cluster of them that the three sisters wrote that are all Gothic, and they were all published within just a few years of each other. Jane Eyre by Charlotte, and Lieutenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne, and then of course Wuthering Heights by Emily. And they were all published, and this we know from their letters. They were all deliberately written in order to take advantage of what they very perspicaciously saw as a fascination with the elements of Gothic literature, the castles, the ruins, the wild windswept moors, the difficult tortured family relationships, the wind, the murderous looks in the eye. They knew these books were trending. And if they were alive now, that's the word they would use. They would say, this is trending, I'm gonna write to it.
They're writing to market.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for them, for many writers still today, it's a matter of survival.
Yeah.
We write as they wrote because that is the thing we do best. I mean, God knows if I could be a trapeze artist or a real estate investment counselor, I would be doing one of those. But this is the thing that I do best, and so they did what they did best. They capitalized on their abilities to try to keep candles burning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were in a desperate situation. They sat down to write these novels because of the desperation of their situation, what was going on with their brother. And I think that Emily would be thrilled to know that her book is read by high schoolers as a matter of course, even more often than Jane Eyre, and that she beat her sister I honestly think she'd be thrilled to know that because they were competing when they wrote. I mean, not it wasn't a competition necessarily, but there is definitely a sense of one-upmanship. The other thing is that Charlotte had a better sense of the market than Emily did. Emily was doing more what she wanted to do. Charlotte, the reason why Jane Eyre has a happier ending is that she wanted it to sell, and she had a better sense at the time of people wanting a happy ending. That's why Jane Eyre, I would call more of a romance, does end with a happily ever after, or at least closer to one that we would recognize than Wuthering Heights does. I think even Charlotte told Emily, like, I think maybe you should let Heathcliff and Kathy get together. And Emily was like, you don't get it. You don't know what I'm talking about. Like, shut up. And like, I think Emily might be a little vexed that people, when they adapt the novel, only adapt the first half and not the second half, because I think she might say, I don't feel like people get it. And that might be the one thing that vexes her, that people see just the first half in the love story, the thing that Charlotte wanted her to just do, and not the full thing that she was trying to say, which is this story about generational trauma. I think that she's talking a little bit about what's going on with her brother and the isolation that they experience. But by the same token, she was a very emotional person. She had a very emotional relationship with the Moors. And I think that she conveys that really well. I think anyone who reads Wuthering Heights really sees her understanding of the Moors and feels it in a way that I don't think that you get from reading Jane Eyre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you struck on something kind of slantwise that speaks to my belief, my very strong belief about what Emily was trying to say. Because you often hear people talking about what she was trying to do. She was trying to project. And then what they do, instead of really getting to that, is list a bunch of characteristics of the novel. But those are not motivating impulses at the heart of the novel. I believe, and have always believed, that the novel asks the same question, which was much asked in that era, as the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And much earlier, one of the books that kicked off the whole movement, Frankenstein, in Mary Shelley. You know, Mary Shelley asked, what is a man in the generic sense? What is a human? What distinguishes a human from a lump of reanimated matter? You know, what this idea, this question was at the heart of revolutionary scientific discoveries in the era. People were questioning everything: evolution, physiology, biology, what the Bible. It's like, well, if we're not children of God who were all created in his image, then what are we? And that's exactly what I believe Emily is asking in Wuthering Heights. Because how did Heathcliff get the way he did? I think he's her Frankenstein.
Yeah, the one thing that she shows really nicely is the way nurture can turn someone into a monster.
Bingo.
And environment as well. I think that it's one of the best novels for showing that. And it shows how it reverberates through generations as well.
Yeah.
So
because he doesn't just torture those who wronged him, but he pushes it down to their children.
Yeah.
What is a man?
Yes. Speaking of, I should probably.
And it's not like she doesn't give. I think frankly, a lot of people who talk about Wuthering Heights have never read it.
Yes, that's very true.
They've never read it. They've seen one of the film adaptations or TV adaptations, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to come out and tell you how I feel. I think they're all horrible, and they're just horrible. And then the best ones are redeemed only by the fact that the acting is so good. Now, when you look at Laurence Olivier, even though you know the dialogue is crap and the whole concept of the film is crap, but he's just so wonderful.
He does carry it.
He acts so well, and as does Merle Oberon. And so you just go, oh, I'm just going to, and then you think you've seen Wuthering Heights. You haven't, but you have seen a tour de force as far as acting goes. But so people without having read the book. Because, like I say, Emily doesn't hide her thesis from you. I mean,
No.
if you count the number of times the word murder appears in the book, I haven't done that, but when I reread it, thanks to Jenna, thank you, Jenna, because of this podcast, I went out and bought a fresh copy and read it again. And I started looking at how many times the word murder is mentioned. It's like, wait a minute, that's a lot of mention. So why does an author, did she do that because she just lost count?
Yeah.
She didn't have
an editor that said you just use this word in the last, yeah.
Fuck you. My editor over at Bloodhound, who I'd love to give a shout out to soon. But Claire will say, you've used this word 4 times on this page alone. It's like,
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. No, she didn't do it unconsciously. She did it deliberately.
Well, yeah, she has her 2 sisters there who are reading her draft and helping her, but she was the most resistant to changes. She was the most resistant to them giving her feedback of the 3 of them.
Yeah, there you go.
She had a very strong sense of what the book was going to be. And even if Charlotte did tell her, I think you're using murder too much, which we don't know, but she might have. Emily was like, I did it on purpose. No thanks. So we know she was very deliberate.
She was right? I mean, the book is enduring for whatever reason, right or wrong or crazy. It's still there. So clearly, it is an interesting thing when editors get on top of something and they're saying something. If you don't change it and it goes out in the world, a lot of times readers don't notice whatever it is an editor has suggested could be problematic, right? So I mean, readers clearly.
Editors don't read like readers. We talked about this in the last podcast. Like, when you're an editor, you're not reading like a reader. You have to be careful to switch between the 2 modes and know what's important and what isn't.
Yeah.
Speaking of
that wasn't important, was it? Right?
Yeah.
Like somebody said, pull some of your murders. You know,
pull some of your murders.
So they would have been wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a huge fracas about the most recent adaptation, as we've been discussing. And I really feel like most adaptations of this novel fall short, as Annie has said, like not least because they don't usually adapt the entire book in both parts. But this one in particular has folks really fired up. Like I've never seen a conversation about an adaptation of a Bronte novel quite this nasty. And I was just wondering what you guys thought of the dust up.
I haven't seen it. It's appearing, as far as I know, only appearing in theaters. I don't go to theaters, and after what I've read about it, I don't really am not motivated. I don't want to see another bad adaptation. The one adaptation that I like parts of is the one that Tom Hardy, the film that Tom Hardy was in, and I only like it because of him, because I think he had a handle on Heathcliff. Heathcliff is not an attractive person. He's not attractive. And Tom Hardy did not try to make him attractive, as so many people portraying Heathcliff. They tried to make him like Olivier. They tried to make him like this brooding, handsome,
a romantic lead.
Yeah, a romantic hero. And Hardy does not do that. He makes him look coarse and unshaven, and somebody, you go, why is she crazy for this?
Is the Tom Hardy version the one that Kate Bush wrote, Wuthering Heights, the music, the song?
It might be. It's 2009.
I wonder if it was that adaptation.
I remember that, but it could be. It's been years since I saw it. But I do remember that about his portrayal.
Yeah. Have you seen the 90s one?
With, what's his face? From LOTR? Not LOTR. Shoot, I can't think of his name right now.
It's the one with the castle. It's really distinctive looking.
Yeah. Did I? Probably. I know I've seen 5 or 6, and every time I see one, I think, why am I punishing myself?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them are pretty bad.
I have to go watch and I have to go watch Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility to wash the taste out of my brain.
Those are easier novels to adapt to the screen, though, to be totally fair to people who try to adapt Wuthering Heights. I do think it's a challenge. I don't think that most people have risen to that challenge.
Wuthering Heights, like you said, I mean, the director was very clear on what she was after what it was to her 14-year-old self,
Yes.
right? So in a lot of ways, it's sort of a fan fiction, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's an adaptation that is a fan fiction. What really has surprised me about it, though, where we are in time, in 2026, that Heathcliff is not portrayed as he is in the book
Oh,
in
yes. Yeah.
terms of
That's
his ethnicity, which in my mind is Roma, but
yeah. He is called the slur word for Romani
well,
several times in the book. That is
yeah.
definitely there.
And so you sort of wonder in a day and age in which of diversity and whatever, they're putting a white guy,
Oh yeah.
because that was part of what was going on, right? That was part of
Mhm.
the prejudice against Heathcliff. So
It's the story.
why
It
not
is the
put
story.
in, yeah, somebody who actually but I guess in her 14-year-old mind, she's read over that part and
Yeah,
uh
this is the irresponsible part of this adaptation to me. The rest of it is very dreamlike. I've seen the costumes, and while I understand why people are irritated by that, there is a dreamlike quality to all of that, and I can see what she's trying to do. And they are really interesting. There's at least something there to talk about. And I don't think it's offensive to do interesting things with the costumes, interesting things with your choreography, interesting things with your cinematography. All of that is fine. It can be weird, but I like weird. That's fine. But being like, well, my 14-year-old self did not see the racialized aspects, and I don't want to do that,
yeah.
is, I think, missing the point of the story. That at that point, you are not talking about Wuthering Heights anymore. Like, Wuthering Heights is about a racialized person, a person who is Romani and possibly an illegitimate child of the household. And to just elide that because you don't wanna, that is really irresponsible. And I think a little head empty, especially in this day and age. You
Yeah.
can get a Romani actor to play Heathcliff, and you can
We
talk
don't
about those things.
don't know for sure that he's wrong. We don't know. I mean, Jane Austen did not hesitate to identify people by race in order to get across certain attributes, however wrongly that she was tagging them with. But Bronte does not do that exactly, though. And from my viewpoint, the thing that it recalled always from the beginning, and when I read it just recently, I checked myself to see if it still brought this to mind, and it does even more strongly, and that's the murders in the Rue Morgue,
Hmm.
which of course is not a novel, but I don't know if you've read it recently enough to remember this, but at the time Murders in the Rue Morgue was published, Paris in particular was being inundated by migrant people of all sorts, and there was a great confusion and labeling and vilification among the Parisians because they didn't understand this influx of new and different people, and so they
Hmm.
were quick to pin things on them. And when Poe is interviewing the other inmates of the apartment building where the murders took place, they are all quick to try to pin it on immigrants, and
Hmm.
they all have their little say about, well, it's probably these people, including the Rome. And so I saw that very strongly in Wuthering Heights, that was part of the same attention, that she's giving attention to that odious practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not important what his 23andMe genetic profile is. Like, we don't actually know his parentage, right? Like, that is purposefully kept unknown. What's important is what the people on the moors think that he is. And he
Yeah,
is called a dark-skinned G-slur in aspect. And
yeah,
that is the sort of the deep perspective of the characters in the story,
yeah,
telling us what they think that he is. That
yes,
he is dark-skinned, that they think that he's Roma. And that's the way that they treat him. And
yeah,
especially Catherine's brother. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's extremely abusive to him, despite the fact that he might be his half brother. And there's some tension there, that the idea that they're related to him, that he wants to distance himself from him, whereas Kathy wants to be closer.
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
love the ambiguity of his birth. That's one of the things I like most. It would have been and might have been tempting for her to tie that up neatly or to pop it on the reader as one of those last minute revelations in the library. And you did not know that I am your secret half brother, did you?
No, don't do it.
A letter in which our mother said, it's like, you must have considered that. And then God, yeah, because that was a daring choice. She kept that ambiguity from beginning to end, and it's kind of an open text. So, and readers are notoriously hostile to open text. So they want to know what actually happened, even though the whole thing's made up. They still want to know, and she wouldn't give it to them. Boy, that woman had some guts.
Yeah,
they all had guts.
It was the same was sort of in Jane Eyre too, right? Remy Rochester had a award, and we were sort of like unsure if he was father. At least I was.
I think that was common in the era, to have these kind of ambiguous people around. You don't know whose children they are, and there's a certain. We were talking about this when we were discussing Bridgerton. We were talking about the wards. Like, you never really know who the ward is, but often they are an illegitimate child, so you want to be careful about how you treat them. And it was pretty scandalous to like suddenly turn them into a servant and disregard somebody's wishes about them, because they could be their children. So this is the thing that happens in Wuthering Heights. Their father dies, and the brother is horrific to him. Absolutely horrific. And that is, I think, meant to be seen as monstrous. This is the monstrous person at first, like not Heathcliff. He's made into a monster by the way he's treated.
Yeah. Going on, speaking of adaptations, we've had a lot of them, and we've been pretty spoiled by a lot of them. Outlander's coming out tomorrow with its final season. Bridgerton, and I was thinking, Bridgerton has made changes, but somehow you go with them. You're okay. The music sounds old-timey, but it's current day music, right? So there are fun things that directors can do, and you'll be like, okay, I'll go along with that. The other side of that is sometimes they go horribly wrong, which we've been talking about. Wuthering Heights, for me, it was last year's Persuasion. I got about 20 minutes in, I had to turn it off. I was like, that is not Anne Elliot. To me, it was blasphemous. I was just like, whoever came up with the idea of doing that should be fired. And of course, this year we have several Austen adaptations coming out. So we have, I guess it will be a six or 8 part series of Pride and Prejudice. So going to the long format, which I'm excited about because Olivia Colman's playing Mrs. Bennet and I love her. But then Netflix also did Persuasion, and I'm really afraid, right?
They also did Bridgerton, right? Like they're very hit or miss.
And of course, there's going to be a new Sense and Sensibility, which I think is going to be a movie. And then there is The Other Bennet Sister, which is not Austen, but is based on Pride and Prejudice, but like Mary's point of view is my understanding. Haven't read it. So there is some sort of like, golly, do we really need another adaptation of Wuthering Heights or Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility? I'm just curious of your thoughts. Is it too much? Are you happy for more? Do you worry about what might happen? Or Annie, what are your thoughts?
I am sick and tired of seeing the same books being regurgitated in 500 different ways, each regurgitation being uglier, in my view, than the last one. It's people, I think, are struggling because the earth is so trampled. People are struggling to find novel viewpoints that may not even be legitimate. May not be well thought through, as you point out. It's like, did they really think this through? But they're novel, and so when there's just too much repetition, the same books being done over and over and over and over, you can't help that. That's going to happen. People will look for novelty for its own sake. And some viewers may be happy with that. But the thing is, there's such a rich field from which they could pull. And your question, as I understood it from the notes you sent me, was, is there an overlooked novel that should be done? I can think of and I'm sure Tara can too. We can probably suggest 50 right off the top of our head. I would love, if we stick even in the Gothic genre, or somewhat Gothic, if we go to Villette, let's stick with the Bronte
Oh, yes, yes. Stay out of my brain. I was going to say that.
That is one of my very favorite novels, and my graduate school mentor was just crazy for it, and so we dissected it, line by line. Madame Bovary, I think, yes, it's been done and done, but not as much as some of these other books have been done, and I think there is room for another fine Madame Bovary, another novel I love very much. Yeah, I'd like to see something better done with the tenants of Wildfell Hall. I'd like to see Carmilla. I mean, let's get vampire here. Carmilla is a much underrated novel. I remember reading it as an undergraduate and going, whoa, where did this come from?
Yeah.
And just drippingly gothic and horror, yes, but in a very deadly, subtle way. And it's like, why hasn't anyone discovered this gem? I mean, there was a film badly done in the 70s, I think. I'm not seeing anything unless I'm missing something. Has anyone seen anything?
I've got a graphic novel called Carmilla and Laura that is really lovely adaptation of Carmilla, but that's the only thing I've seen done with it beyond that. I mean, of course, Carmilla, there's like a Carmilla that shows up in the God, what is it called? There's like an anime cartoon universe we won't get into here, but like you see like a Carmilla, but she's not like in the book, but I see her play around with.
Yeah, but or even if we want to go way back, I mean, the Castle of Otranto, I don't know that someone probably did a Castle of Otranto as film, but I've never seen it.
Is there?
Yeah, interestingly, my again, my grad school mentor, Dr. Paula Lee, who is herself many published author and academic, brilliant woman, absolutely expert in the whole 19th century literature field, not only British but German. But she had never read The Castle of Otranto, and I actually brought it into class one day and said, "Would you like to talk about this?" Because I was so certain she had read it. I mean, my God, she's read everything. And she said, "Oh, I've never read it," and I went,
"Oh man."
I know when you get something over on somebody that elevated, and she adored it. So why hasn't somebody done something with that?
I think it's lack of knowledge, not just amongst people who are writing movies, but also the general public, For instance, like I would really love to see Evelina.
People will go watch, right?
Yes, yeah.
Today, books that are adapted are books that are popular.
Yeah, if they've already been adapted and people are already interested, that base is there, right? I would love to see Evelina. I'd love to see more Fanny Burney. Yeah, I would love to see Cecilia. Of course, I love Cecilia. That would make a great miniseries. Gosh, there are so many of them. I would love to see A Simple Story by Inchbald. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
The Female Quixote would be hilarious. I would watch the heck out of that. Yeah, there's a lot out there. And Pamela, gosh, I mean, we love Cinderella stories from the Enlightenment. Let's do it. Oh, it's basically like season 4 of Bridgerton, but more. There's so much that could be done with it. I think that they did one adaptation of Clarissa, and it was really difficult. And it's not a romance, of course, but it's so rich.
Yeah.
It's the longest novel in the English language, so it's hard to adapt.
Tom Jones.
Not Tom Jones. All right, you don't want to get me started on Tom Jones and that man. Every Fielding is on my list.
Or even let's have some more Fielding. Yeah, because that's comfortable. We're Swift. I mean, we don't have to just go for obscure novels to find really viable properties that people aren't doing.
Yeah.
And if you go back to Jane Austen, they're redoing Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility all the time. I've only seen, I don't know how many Persuasions were done. I know the one in the 90s is the one that I love. There may have been one before that. Of course, the one a year ago, like I said, no, that's not Persuasion.
BBC did one in 2008. Pretty good.
Northanger Abbey, there's several books in there, and nobody goes back and really looks at those. And I think it has to do with, everybody's heard of Pride and Prejudice, right? So let's do that one again. I don't know. Because we have, especially today, with so much media in terms of TV and movies, are adapting books.
Yeah.
So historically, there's so many they could do. So it's, yeah, maybe they aren't as well read, or maybe they're just focusing on the ones they think, oh, people will have heard of that, they'll come see it.
Maybe it's a recession indicator how many Pride and Prejudice adaptations we suddenly get.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, though, I am looking forward to Olivia Colman. I mean, they have a good cast. The woman from The Crown that played Diana will be Elizabeth. The guy from Slow Horses is going to be That'll be interesting because I don't know that I've ever seen a blonde Darcy. So
Actually, wait a minute. I said this blithely, but now that I think about it, BBC did do a raft of new Jane Austen adaptations in 2008 and 2009. So maybe it is a recession
well,
indicator.
yeah, there was a Persuasion then, actually. I do
I
remember
like that one.
Yeah, except for when she's running through the street. I was like,
Mm,
that's dumb.
yeah, that was dumb. It felt rushed in some places, but I did like it. I thought
Yeah,
that they were tender about it. You could tell they loved
yeah.
Persuasion.
The
I
best
did like
ones
that
still.
Mansfield Park. I thought that was a good Mansfield Park.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah.
Listen,
Go on, we'll be
Penny,
here all night.
you are well versed in British literature, British ways of life, British history, all that kind of stuff. I know you're getting ready to move there. I'm just curious, how did that come about? How did you decide, okay, British history and the castles and all that kind of stuff was what you wanted to write?
The British history that I'm most interested in has nothing to do with castles, interestingly enough, but I have wanted to live in Britain since I was 13, and I read National Velvet 4 times in a row without a break in between. I would get to the last page and start at the beginning of reading.
Wow.
And I was so immersed and so happy being immersed in that environment that I went out of my way to read British literature on every level. I very early, my mother foisted, I think there were 11. It was a complete match set of James Fenimore Cooper. And I made it through the last of the Mohicans, and I think the leather stocking, and then I said, the heck with these. And I actually, this is horrifying. I actually hollowed out one of the books to hide secret things in when I was a teenager. I know, I should have burned at the stake, but this was a mass-produced set. They weren't first editions or anything. But I hated Cooper, and I hated all the American authors. I mean, they were always being forced down our throats in school, and then I just hated them. I just had to suffer through them. And then every time then we had an opportunity to read Dickens or Harte or Thackeray, anybody but an American, I would lose myself again in this alternative universe that was so necessary to me. I just couldn't live without that daily infusion of grit. And I kept that and kept it and started scheming for ways to live abroad. And as an adult, then of course, actually, my first experience living in the UK, briefly visiting the UK, was when I was 14. And my mother, who was an Italian immigrant, wanted to go visit her family. Well, we suffered 6 weeks. She and I suffered 6 weeks in Italy, and I hated every foot of it.
Oh, no.
And then because I feigned illness so convincingly that she thought she had to wrap it up with the Italians and was going to take me home. And we couldn't get a flight. So, poor us. We had to book a first-class cabin on the Queen Mary.
Oh my gosh.
This was the original Queen Mary. And so we came back under the Queen Mary. But in order to make the boat, we ended up spending 2 weeks in London.
Cool.
And the minute I got out of Italy and put my foot down on British soil, I was home. I was just a kid, but I felt it in my bones. And so ever since then, I've been trying to get back. And for the last 13 years, I have been going back and forth and back and forth. I mean, I've lived in other countries, but nowhere that affected me as strongly as the UK did. And so the last 13 years, I have been going back and forth to Wales primarily, where I established a whole life. I have a whole life over there. And my principal publisher is in London, Bloodhound Books. As you remember very clearly, Jenna, because you were my agent who sent them that series, which they took literally overnight.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
That was quick. But the thing that always stands out to me is reading Bound, set in a castle in Wales.
Castle in Wales, based on my experiences my first few years of going over there and spending up to what my passport allowed, which was 6 months.
I just got such a giggle out of reading that when she's serious historian.
Such a historian. I don't do tours.
And they're like, are there ghosts? She's like, serious. Yeah.
That was me. That was me.
Yeah. And then her bosses are like, you should do a ghost tour. She's like,
it was also my bosses, yes. Of the money.
And then of course she meets Patrick, right? So yeah. Love that book. Love that book.
I mean, also one of your biggest historical romance series that you have is also the Corset Girls series. And I was wondering if you tell us a bit more about it, because I don't know too much. I might follow you on social media, but no, I still don't know as much about it as I'd like. And also if you've ever had a reader or reviewer react in a way to it that shocked you.
Shocked me pleasantly, but the Corset Girls is, I call it Victorian noir. It's about as far as you can imagine from the mainstream of historical romance, which I call Crisis in the Ballroom. It's about us. Oh my God, my lives and my gown has come down and everyone's on my toes.
That's my Panic at the Disco cover band now.
I'm in the upper end of my focus. I am a cultural historian, and my focus, both the undergraduate and graduate level, was on material culture stuff people make and why they make it, or at least why they make it the way they make it. So a rich ground for research for me has always been Victorian England, which was the pinnacle of production in the industrial revolution as it took place in that part of the world. And so I decided I wanted to write a series about 4 working class women. And because I know an awful lot about the history of corseting, I decided they would be corset makers, because, write what you know. And I didn't know that much about muscles, but I knew an awful lot about corsets. So awesome. I made them corset makers. And they, one by one, though all the characters appear in all the books, but it's a 4-book series, and one by one they become embroiled with 4 men who come from not just working class. Well, 3 of them were below working class. They came from London slums, and those 3 men were all members of London's most notorious street gang. And the 4th, even though he was raised in what we would now call an upper middle class background, he totally went off the rails. He ended up being a deserter from the Royal Navy and a spy. So these are the 4 men, and then the 4 women all have their own interesting history. One of them at the start of book 1 is actually wanted for murder. So you see where it goes from there. She said, "That was an accident. It was an accident. I didn't mean to." And the other maid, who has fled from this house where she has just killed her master, says, dumping tea on the master's lap, that's an accident. I said, "Kill it with a carving knife. Ain't no accident." That's how the book started.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, that is great.
Did you have a way that a reviewer reacted to you that shocked you?
Yeah, I was, and people have said very nice things about the book, but the thing that was nicest came from my editor, so I will definitely bring her in. Claire Law is my editor at Bloodhound Books. And I love her so much, and we have such a good relationship that I have, like on this current book that she's going to start editing in a couple of months, I waited 6 months for her to be available. I could have gotten the book out sooner with another editor, but I said no. And they gave me, this is one of the things I love about them. They always defer to the author, always. And they said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to wait for her? And I said, yes, please.
Oh,
Claire, in reading the second book of the series, which is Unbound, she said, somehow we were exchanging emails, and I said something about pulp. I said, you don't think this is too pulpy? And she said, I'll tell you what I think about that. The pulpiest genre can be raised, can be elevated, she said, to the level of fine literature by good writing, which
yes.
you did. And I went, I can die now.
I love that.
You have to print it out and hang it up.
Yeah, life goals. You should cross stitch it.
Copied and pasted it and tucked it away where in file. Read it when I'm having like imposter syndrome.
That's right. Those moments when you're like, what am I doing?
Well, what made me think I could do this?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
she's seen it all. So if she says I can do it, then by gum, I can do it.
You can do it. You can do it. That's great. Well, you also have book 3 of the Bound trilogy coming out.
Yeah.
Soon. And how are there 4 books total in that? Do I remember we sold 4?
Yeah, unless they decide to extend the franchise, which I honestly am gonna throw all my eggs into the Bloodhound Books basket. I've enjoyed working with 3 other publishers, but Bloodhound is there. And I know I've confronted the fact that it's a very unstable business, and publishers do put authors aside. And I may be one of them. I'll try not to take it personally if they decide that I'm just not selling enough. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not always sure that publishers know exactly whether they're doing the right thing. They do what they can. It's such a vicious business, such a hard business. Publishers are all suffering very greatly. I understand that. And they don't want to reduce everything to the bottom line. They don't want to do that. They're not gleefully telling authors, I'm really sorry, but we can't use you anymore. There's no happiness.
Yeah.
But if they have to do it with me, then I will look for another publisher in the UK. It's all global.
It happens with people who've been around a lot. I have a friend who I know several people who write cozies, and they might have written 2 or 3 series, and then all of a sudden they're pitching their next, and they're like, nope, you just never know who they're going to decide. This is not what we're doing anymore. And yeah, I've had publishers reject books, and when they give me the reason, I'm thinking, this is not the book I sent you. Sometimes I'm like, the reason they've rejected it is like not a part of the book I sent. So it's very strange, the industry. Yeah. So it's exciting that Bloodhound Books has been so great to you. And I know you want to be there and be closer. I think that's great.
I do. Yeah. I am going to make a stab at this little push for a new book I'm going to have coming out very shortly, like within weeks, I hope. I'm going to make a little foray into self-publishing, and I've written a World War II spy novel for kids. It's set in Britain. Of course, for Bloodhound, I write entirely in British English, so no, I do that. But it's set in a small town in World War II, where it's for middle school readers, and what we call middle school readers. And they've found themselves in a situation where they end up spying on a neighbor, and they start out doing it for fun. Oh, it's just fun, he just looks a little suspicious, and nobody likes him anyways. And, we'll just keep an eye on him. And lo and behold, they determine that he may be committing treason.
Ooh.
And so they get pulled deep into this business.
Sounds like a great adventure when you're
adventure,
12 years old.
Series of it, but right now I'm just trying to figure out self-publishing, which is making money.
Yeah, there's a need for more middle grade books. This is something that Rap talks about a lot, where I actually agree with them. I do think that there is a need for more middle grade books they're smart, and that get kids thinking about STEM or history, especially that are useful for like homeschooled kids and stuff like that as well. So that's a good spot to get into, especially because you know so much about history.
I hope so, and I loved writing it. It was actually a release from writing so much romance. And don't get me wrong, I love romance. I love romantic suspense, historical anything, but I don't know. And this was historical, but it was a relief in some ways not to have that overarching romantic, what's the word, framework, I guess, that you have to sit into it. And it's both liberating and confining, but that's a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, romance has very specific beats. And if you can pull, if you don't have to do it, when I wrote my cozies, it was the same thing. It was like, okay, I don't have to hit these beats. I just have to solve a murder.
Oh, just have to solve a murder.
I just have to hit those beats, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It has its own beats. You got to have your red herring and then your second red herring.
Yeah, your suspects.
Microphone here.
Yeah.
All right. So normally we like to talk about what we're reading or give book recommendations, but today I'd like to ask instead, what's an underrated romance you wish more people talked about?
Oh, well, Jenna's heard this before, but I am the world's, well, all right, but I won't talk about her again. She knows my favorite historical romantic suspense author, so I will not bring her up again, though her name is Joanna Bourne. But anyway, I recently read The Essex Serpent, and I loved it in part because I do believe it is a sort of romance. It is a romance. I will defend it. I believe it's a romance, but it is not a typical genre romance. It breaks several rules. And yet at the end of it, I was so moved by the love in it, the tenderness, and the sort of desperate, realistic longing. I was very moved by that book. It's a wonderful book. And I forgot the author's surname, Sarah, whatever. But he's got a phone there. Why don't you look up The Essex Serpent?
The Essex Serpent.
It definitely has Gothic elements. Now there was a really execrable, terrible sort of adaptation of it made. I think might have even been by somebody big like PBS or BBC or something. But it was awful. I couldn't get past the first episode. It was just like like doing a different book.
Oh, it's Sarah Perry is the author.
Sarah Perry, thank you. I was thinking Anne Perry, and then I could. Well, Anne Perry's another one who I think very highly of. But yeah, that book is definitely worth a read. It will leave you changed in some subtle way. Even though when you're reading it, when you're in the middle of it, you will ask yourself, what the heck is going on? Like, did I lose the plot or did the characters lose the plot? It's like sometimes you wonder why people are doing what they're doing. But it all hangs together in a wonderful, quirky way. It's dark without being depressing. Does that make sense? It has definitely worth a read. The Essex Serpent.
I love that. Jenna?
Yeah, I've been racking my brain because there's a lot of books I've read that I've enjoyed and I recommend, But when we're looking at what's the one underrated, oh my God. I always kind of go back to Austen's Persuasion. Everybody focuses on Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, which are great books. Persuasion, at the end, it's like Pride and Prejudice has grown up. It's second chance. I love how subtle it is in a lot of ways. It's why I liked that 96, is it 96 adaptation? Because I thought the actors got that really well. Like somehow you see the tension on the screen, even though most of the time they're not talking to each other through part of that film. Yeah, I really liked, that's one I wish people paid more attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like it should be like the most popular of the Austen novels, and that it should be the thing that gets adapted over and over again, and yet it's not.
And I feel people say, what's your favorite? Everybody's like, well, Pride and Prejudice, usually that's their favorite, maybe Sense and Sensibility. And sometimes I'm like, well, those are great, but I think Persuasion's mine. And they look at me like I'm fun. It's like, have you not read it? But maybe it's like Annie was saying earlier, a lot of people have opinions about things and they didn't read it. They've only seen the movie or whatever. So they watch
Yeah.
the Colin Firth adaptation of Pride and Prejudice and they love it. And I suppose if they talk about it, I love when he walked out of the lake with his shirt all wet. It'd be like, you did not read that book.
Imagine Jane Austen writing about his wet shirt.
Yeah, you did not read that book.
You did not read that. Yeah, I do think that people have things in their mind. It has more mind share, right? If it's got lots of adaptations. I actually don't think that Sense and Sensibility as a book is very good. It's almost juvenilia for Jane Austen.
Yeah.
Compared with her later books, I think that it's not as well written. I mean, like when I rank them, things like Mansfield Park and Northanger Abbey, which is kind of more juvenilia as well, but still more subtle and more interesting in a lot of ways because it's kind of a satire. It's making fun of Gothic novels and Gothic novel readings. So it's got a lot going on. And then, of course, Persuasion, which is, I think, a masterpiece. And even Emma, which is like, it's huge, it's grandiose, it's got amazing like depth of character to it. These are all better written to me than Sense and Sensibility.
Well, I think Sense and Sensibility, she did actually write first, but Pride and Prejudice was published first.
I think so. Pride and Prejudice was really successful in its time. It was the one that she probably had the most success on. She had trouble with the later books.
Yeah. Although in Sense and Sensibility, the thing that always cracked me up is when one of the girls is talking about how Colonel Brandon, he's so old, he's infirm. And then you realize he's 36.
Yeah, he's on the wrong side of 35.
I just thought that was so funny. And of course, Alan Rickman plays him masterfully in the movie. So
a little spooked by it. The older I get, the more it kind of spooks me watching Sense and Sensibility with the 15-year-old and the 36-year-old. I've never been super into that, but I get less into that the more time goes on.
The actress was 19 at the time, so
true. But it's like that. But the story is that she's 15, right? And I see her as 15, and well, less so when it's Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet seems very like womanish, but there's an adaptation that I really like that the BBC did. Again, I think it's one of the 2008 ones, and she looks 15. She acts 15, and he looks 36, maybe 40, and it's just kind of spooky.
That would be creepy.
Yeah, it's just I'm not into that age difference. Some age differences are fine. When one's a 15-year-old, less into that. Okay, I should probably give mine here.
Yeah.
I noted this for adaptations, but I actually wish more people read Cecilia. This is a Fanny Burney novel. I really love it. Even in academia, I wished more people would talk about it. People really prefer Evelina as academics to talk about, which is a shorter novel and is kind of less troubled. It's just kind of a more straightforward, almost Austenian sort of love story. And Cecilia has all this stuff going on about being an heiress and feminism. Well, this is proto-feminism, right? But it's still really, really interesting, and it almost doesn't end happily. Like it's really cuts it close. You know, you're like, oh God, I can't see how this is going to turn out well. And there's still kind of a bittersweet aspect to it, but it does get to that happily ever after, and it's really good. And both our main male character and our main female character are really interesting, and there's a lot there about what you give up to be in love, you know, what you have to sacrifice, especially in this time period. And even the side characters are so vivid. It has a suicide in it. It's a really interesting book, and I wish more people talked about it.
Sometimes All right, I don't want to start this conversation here because again, this is one of the conversations you and I need to have that will take up all day. But I'm going to talk about Maria Edgeworth with you.
Oh, Edgeworth, yes.
Yeah, I'm I plump for Maria Edgeworth any day of the week, and it's a shame and a pity that she's been so overlooked, so overshadowed by Austen. Not that Austen is a genius, but just the sheer volume of Maria Edgeworth and her forthrightness in the way. When people complain about slogging through an Austen novel, I say, well, you need to read Maria Edgeworth. Not everyone wrote the way Austen wrote. She had a stylistic thing. I mean, it was mannered writing. She wrote the way Austen wrote. When you read Maria Edgeworth, it sounds like it was written last week. Very forthright, very straightforward, and highly engaged with social issues and political issues. And I would just love to live long enough to see somebody do a good adaptation of Castle Rackrent.
Yes, yeah.
That I would
Rackrent.
just love to see that. So there's another one. Maria Edgeworth, yeah. I love to play devil's advocate and go to Austen events and carry around a copy of Castle Rackrent with me. Just start coming, people say, "Oh, which Austen is that?" And I go, "It's not Austen." And I turn, there it is, Castle Rackrent. Yeah,
yeah, or Belinda, which is I think a very recognizable sort of almost Austenian like romance novel with a lot going on in it. It has some gothic aspects to it, and it is one that we know that Austen read.
Yeah. Well, there's just not enough time, too many books.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, no, and of course we were talking adaptations. We were talking British history, and of course Bridgerton season 4, part 2 dropped last week. Do you watch Bridgerton, Annie, at all?
I dislike
You don't like them? Like the books or the show or both or
both.
both?
Oh no.
And Julia Quinn, I don't. I'm not on ship Bridgerton or Team Bridgerton.
Well, I want to hear it. I want to hear why you don't like it. Let's go. I'm curious.
I simply do not. I don't have hatred for it. I'm not on a campaign. I'm not vindictive. What people write is their own business. If people want to write historical fantasy, God bless them, as we say. Well, bless your heart. Go forth and write it. It's not what I write. It's not what I care to do. I have tremendous reverence for history, even though I know and have written, as you know, from the first Bound Across Time novel, I have written very almost sarcastically about the fallibility of the historical record. I mean, it's more full of holes than a spaghetti strainer. But I think because I put so much into authenticity and because I revere getting it right so much, I would never write historical fantasy. For those who want to write it or read it, more power to their elbow. But I don't care to either read it or write it. And so that's it. That's all I have to say about Bridgerton. Julia Quinn, if we talk about Julia Quinn as an author, she is a wonderful author. But even in her non-Bridgerton books, she plays fast and loose with the historical record, with historical authenticity. And that does not entertain. I don't enjoy it. Some people do. I don't.
No, some people wouldn't know, right? Like I wouldn't know.
Well, then that's up to them. But I'm just in a different world. That's all. It's just
Yeah, I can completely see how professionally you would have issues with it. I also, when I'm watching the show, there are certain things that will bug me. It depends on what it is. No, I've never had a problem with the costumes because it was all very fun. But the moment they started doing servants and they started showing the servants in Victorian style, like livery, the female servants in the Victorian like ladies maids outfits, I got mad, right? Because I do know a lot about that. And then I was like, well, this is social history, right? Like in the 18th century in the Regency, you didn't have people dressing in uniforms. And someone pointed out to me, like, well, this is just visually to help people distinguish who is a maid from which household, which I totally get. like practically speaking, but also there is a really important social history there. And
Yeah.
certain things, if you allied them or you don't want to deal with them, there are ramifications to that, and it can be grating.
This is where ignorance is bliss, because I wouldn't know,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it, right? What I really liked about this season was it wasn't just Benedict and the fact that he had fallen for a woman that if he marries her, his other sisters won't be able to get married. It's gonna ruin the family because she's
Hmm.
illegitimate, she's a whatever. But they played on, there was a lot of talk about society has these, we have these rules because it gives us order and that this is good and good. But it really was sort of showing how they were hurting, right? So we saw it hurting Benedict. He's finally in love with a woman he can't have unless she agrees to be a mistress. She's not going to do that. She's not going to relive her mother's life. But then we also saw it in when Francesca's, spoiler alert, Francesca's husband passes. She believes she's pregnant. In the book, she is pregnant.
Oh.
And they do that invasive procedure. They have to verify it in order to have the succession of Lord Kilmartin's line. So this
Hmm.
very evasive thing in that scene where Benedict is really trying to stop it. Like he is
Hmm.
seeing, my sister's just lost her husband. She already is someone who struggles in social things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that was a painful, and then the scene where we watch it happen, where she is
Yeah.
being physically, and there was another situation where we're seeing society where we have all these rules and stuff that we abide by, and aren't they good, but they're actually causing a great deal of pain. So I was glad to see that part because all the other Bridgertons, these are all rich people with rich people just having to get past whatever. But this really sort of we were able to see a lot of darker aspects of that world. So I enjoyed that element. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, his
I
brother
like the
is telling
characters.
him, you can't do this, and da 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 da. And I was just like, poor Benedict. And then even at his mother, he's like, you have spent our whole life telling us to marry for love.
Hmm.
Now you're telling me I can't. Just
Yeah.
because, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that I just have to like watch it as a sort of character piece and not worry about historical stuff, and then I do have a good time.
Yeah.
Like as a character piece, it's like living inside of a dream world, an internal kind of world, especially watching it. I think that works quite well a lot of the time, and not trying to worry too much about historical stuff. But like I could totally see professionally if someone wrote historical fiction being extremely annoyed by it. Just like I would be if someone was like writing something that was like science fiction fantasy, but that was just sort of aesthetically that, but not really doing science fiction, I would get annoyed super quickly. So I
Yeah.
could see that.
I've been in critique groups
Yeah.
where they were writing historical romance and they said something, and somebody in the group says, those aren't the kind of lights they had then, or that's
Oh
not
boy.
the candle they used, or I don't
Mhm.
know, it was something minute, like I would have just right over, right? I mean, I would have known, but they knew. And so I'm wondering, back when historical romance was really starting to pick up, I want to say it's in the 90s or something, Julia Quinn and all them, maybe it really didn't matter. You could play fast and loose and nobody really paid attention.
Oh no, they weren't. So the history police were not out at that point. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure there were people reading it and going, "Oh, this is awful." But what little I hardly read romance at all before I started writing it. It's a deliberate decision to write it. It was not based on, oh, I've been reading romance since I was 16 and I love it. I love the genre. No, I just never read it. But what little I then did read as an adult was sort of the Barbara Cartland,
Oh.
and she was a very I call her workmanlike. I mean, she
Mhm.
was a very capable writer. Um, she wrote 100 books,
Yeah.
but no, there was not a lot of attention, and people make jokes about the covers at the same time that there's sort of a vogue. I mean, there are people who like on Instagram just post all these vintage covers. And they say, well, they're not, they bear no resemblance to what an interior would look like. But when you look at them closely, they actually do. I mean, the elements are there, just like they were there in Heartland and early, what's her name, Joanna, what's one of that family. The women all wrote, but they all wrote romance. But the elements are there. They're just treated stylistically in a way that speaks to book buyers in the 60s or 70s. And so you look at it and you go, well, that's not right. But then you examine it and it actually is right. It's just not developed to any high degree. And that's true of the writing as well. And then sometimes it really is just a blatant bodice ripper with no redeeming literary value whatsoever.
Yes.
It's trash and it's huge fun. And
Delicious.
I was seduced into romance because I was slogging away writing serious historical fiction. I went, I'm not getting anywhere with this. This is never going to sell. And I looked at romance and looking at it from those books, and I thought, well, shoot, I can write that. And I got into it and went, man, it's hard.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many authors I've heard start out with, well, I could write that, and then they get into it, and you're like, it is a little bit trickier.
Yeah, it's a genre, and you have to learn it, and you have to understand it. There's a lot there, and there's a lot of expectations from the readers. But historical fantasy, not historical fantasy, historical writing generally. I mean, I remember Diana Gabaldon was getting a lot of heat in the 90s when she first started writing Outlander. And one thing she's talked about was how hard it was to get information at the time. You had to go to the library and you had to find the right books. And if they didn't have them, you had to order them. It was a lot more difficult for her to just even do the research that she needed to do to write those books. So it's a heavier lift than it is now. Plus, the people who are reading them, they had less access to information as well. So it was harder for them to check something. Now we all have the internet. You can look up and be sort of like, that's not the Gaelic word for nah, 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 nah. And, but also the authors have more access to information. The bar is higher. And also, academics are more allowed to write in genre now than we used to be, right? It is more acceptable for Annie and I to write genre without everyone in our field looking down on us, right? Like, I have switched over, like, Annie is still a historian, and I think 30 years ago, it would have been looked down upon much more so. So you had this silo of historians who knew the information that would make really good historical fiction, but a lot of them weren't really allowed to step outside of their box and write that without people looking down on them.
Yeah.
Especially to write historical romance.
Historical author, romance author, Eloise
James.
She's a professor at Harvard or something like that.
He is a full English professor at I forgot where, but yeah, she was a full professor and she started writing romance and she caught some flack for it.
Yeah, she had to hide, I think, a little bit. I mean, it's a pen name, right? Yeah.
I think recently made some decisions that, for want of a better word, I would say she's, I don't want to use dumbing down, but she's writing in a way that is, she probably believes it's more accessible. It's certainly, which I'm sure it is, but it is far less worthy of her ability. The thing that I loved most about her, and I used to be one of her #1 fans, is that she brought this very solid scholarly background in history. She brought enormous historical detail and authenticity to really, really good romance novels.
Yeah.
They ticked every box for romance, every one, and yet they were beautifully researched. And then her more recent novels are not. And they're still ticking the romance boxes, but the rest of it is not there. So I unfortunately stopped reading. I don't want to ever make that decision. Ever. That's not a decision I want to make.
Yeah.
I don't care. And there are people that have advised me that I should do that because my work will sell better. And probably would. But I'm not.
You never know. I mean, a book catching fire is, you don't know it. And I mean, a lot of things that we see catching fire are things that did have something different, right? There was something that, so You do you, Annie. And I want to thank you for chatting with us today. It's so good to see your face again and chat with you because it has been a while. And I just want to remind everybody that we will have links to all of Annie's wonderful books, as well as the others we've mentioned on the show. I've been madly trying to write them down.
Oh, I've been writing them down.
Share them. Thank you,
Yes.
because I'm sure I missed some. You knew some that I didn't know, so I'll need your help. But Annie, thank you again. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, so we are Tender and Tempting Tales. This has been Illicit Liaisons. If you go on Substack, you'll find us Tender and Tempting Tales at Substack. You can go on there, and if you are a writer, you will see that we have a call for Fantastical Foes, which is our next zine. That's going to be Romantasy Enemies to Lovers. That call opens April 1st and ends at the end of April. We have our homework now posted. You can take a look at what we're looking for. The next thing that's going to be coming up is that we have the publication of Pause and Peril on March 30th. That is our first zine. That's romantic suspense, and we really hope that you'll join us for that. That was edited by Rachel Young. It includes Jenna, myself, and Marissa Marinello. It's going to be a lot of fun. Our next publication of an anthology will be Fireworks and Flirtation. That's coming out May 18th. And we have another call that is going to be Starlit and Spellbound from May 1st to May 30th. So get ready, start your engines. You can also find us on Instagram. That's Tender Tempting Tales at Instagram. And thank you so much, Annie, for joining us. Jenna?
Yeah, and don't forget, Annie's in Fireworks and Flirtation coming in May, so you're going to want to check that out. And
Right.
until next time, this is Jenna Harte wishing you peace, love, and happily ever after.